I became a realtor. So we're looking at rental properties, like a lot of other investors, people in our space. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, said, okay, the W-2 rat race is not for me. I'm going to go do my own thing. So we're trying to buy rental properties. So I partnered up with three of my best friends. We created an entity, which was a disaster. And we met a broker who was having success in real estate. And I said, okay, so by the way, all our loans got denied. Fortunately, the banks declined all our loans. Otherwise, we would have foreclosures on our records. But at the time, we wanted those loans. But I met a realtor, and I was like, well, what do you do exactly? And how much do you make? He's like, I make 100,000 a year, and all I do is just talk to people.
All right, Steve, welcome to the show, brother.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Dude, it's absolute pleasure to have you here. How's your day going, man?
Been going good, just running, our everyday routine. Seems like these days there's more on our training and education component. Seems to take more and more of our day, but I love it because we're helping a lot of people.
Awesome, man. Now, when you say training and education, are you talking about teaching students and clients how to? Okay.
Yeah. So I have, I've got the brokerage. So I have my one-on-ones with, our top agents. And then we have our scaling calls. We actually had Chris Chico on our call to coach our students on how to get better at Facebook. So
nice.
Yeah, that was
awesome,
pretty cool.
Man. Awesome. How's I know you're out of Phoenix. We just talked about that, right? 100 degrees already, man. Holy
Triple digits.
Smokes.
Yeah.
Man, cooking egg
Phoenix is great.
On the ground over there. Yeah, how's it going with COVID and stuff, man? Is everything back open already, or?
We had a lockdown for a little bit, but it really feels like in Arizona we never really took it seriously, to be honest. So
no kidding.
I know like in New York things were shut down. They took it really seriously in California, but
yeah,
dude, it doesn't feel like we ever really.
I'm in Jersey right now. Yeah, like everything's closed, like malls, everything, restaurants.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't get my haircut for like a month and a half, but the second weekend it was open, I got my haircut, like,
that's why I'm rocking the hat, man. I got a haircut in 3 months.
Yeah. It just feels like things never really were serious here. And I think part of it too, has to do with the infrastructure. Everyone has a car in Phoenix. So there's no, you naturally social distance.
Much like Houston, where I invest.
Mm-hmm.
Houston's a driving city, man. You can't get far without a car.
Right.
So
exactly.
Same deal in Phoenix.
Yep.
Man, yeah, dude. The Phoenix market, man, is one real estate market that I've heard over the years, over the last 5-6 years, man. A lot of action, a lot of activity.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually considered myself getting involved over there into some deals because it's very similar to the Texas markets.
I would imagine it's pretty comparable. The nice thing about Phoenix is that we're laid out, everything's a square. So when you get off the freeway, the exit, it's always on the right-hand side of the freeway, never on the left-hand side of the freeway. You turn right, you turn left, you don't have all these loops. Living in California for a couple of years, it's just you never knew which side of the freeway the exit was on.
Yeah.
And it was aggravating.
Yeah.
So everything here is very square. Everything is designed like a newer city you would expect.
Awesome, man. So, Steve, for the people and the listeners that aren't familiar with your work and what you're currently up to, would you mind to give us like a brief overview of what you're involved with?
Yeah, sure. So I still have a traditional real estate team. We still handle referrals, and I don't run them. I pass them off. I've got the brokerage with 120 agents. So we're very closely approaching 1% market share in the entire Phoenix market. Got my wholesaling business. Got my title venture. Got the podcast, got a wholesaling app, and then I have a sales training business.
What's the wholesaling app?
That's everything.
What's the wholesaling app? What does that do?
So we basically create an MLS for off market. So one of the biggest frustrations as a wholesaler or as a flipper, if you're trying to buy a property, if you're not on if you're one of the first few calls, fantastic, you're in a really great spot. But if you're not on someone's first call list, then you're on their email list. And what happens is on the email, by the time it makes it to you, it's too late, right? Like most of us aren't checking our emails. If we're good business owners, good steward is good stewards of our business, then we really shouldn't be in our emails. And so when there's a good deal, you miss it, right? Or the guy texts you, and by the time you get back to it, it's too late. So we created an MLS so that if there's a hot property that matches exactly what you're searching for, right? We're assuming that you have a specific target, a buy box. So if some property shows up in your buy box, you get a push notification. But if it doesn't fit your buy box, then you don't get a notification, which is ideal, right? So now the notifications are meaningful, and then you will drop other things that you're doing to respond to it versus an email or a text. It could be anything, right? Really, an email could be just about anything. It's probably spam anyway. So we created this app so that wholesalers and flippers, or wholesalers and end buyers, we create a communication platform to
Dude, I love
look at properties, negotiate, contract, all that fun stuff.
How long has the app been out?
14 months. We released it April of last year.
Nice, man. And is it only covering right now the Phoenix market area? Or?
Right now we are in Arizona, Texas, Florida, and Georgia.
Okay. Any plans for 50 states?
Oh yeah, if it were up to me, that would happen last year. But I'm just one voice.
Yeah.
So this year for sure will be nationwide. I mean, we've refocused a few times here and there. We just partnered up with Arizona RIA, which is the biggest RIA in Arizona, and from what I understand, the model for RIAs across the country. And so we just partnered up with them. We are their go-to platform. So if you're in that Arizona RIA and you have a property, you post it in there. And so we've got that. We're talking to a different RIA in Texas right now, but the hope is that we'll just be the platform for every RIA across the country.
I love it, man. So you're wearing many different hats, right? Multiple flows. Got the real estate flow, specifically the agent stuff. You got the wholesaling game. You got some rental properties. You're also in the tech space. I love it, man. I love it. How important is multiple flows of income to you?
Well, I think if you look at wealth, typically they say you need multiple streams of income. Now, I also recognize that you need to be focused and singularly focused to be successful and master any one thing. But they say for building wealth, you need at least three streams of income.
And I think that's a tough one for a lot of people that are getting started in business. Sometimes we get that shiny coin syndrome where we're doing
shiny
something.
object syndrome is serious. It's a serious problem.
You get into another one and you want to do this, you want to do that. So has that ever been a challenge for you, or have you been really good at focus?
100% has been a challenge. One of my best friends is convinced I have ADD. And this is my best friend who we went to high school together, ASU together. We both went to different universities to pursue a master's degree in electrical engineering, right? Like, you have to be somewhat focused to be an engineer. Right. But he laughed at me for the longest time. I was like, you can't stay still. You can't do just one thing. You're always shifting and changing gears. And he's like, how can you expect to have any kind of success if you're always changing gears? It's fair critique.
That's a golden nugget right there, man.
Yeah.
That's a real golden nugget. So, Steve, I want to take it back, right? Because you're doing all these things right now in business as an entrepreneur, but let's take it way back. Let's talk high school. Were you a good student in school?
So one of the things I still remember to this day is a teacher said to me, "You are a waste of potential." So I did well in school, enough to get a scholarship, but hang on one second. I did well enough to get a scholarship, to get a full ride to ASU.
Nice.
Problem was I did just enough. And so, I would always do my homework the period before it was due. There may or may not have been copying of homework. We might have shared some stuff. But I was always a distraction. I was always talking too much. I got some complaints about that. I blended well, with all the other students. So I had a lot of friends. I wasn't popular. I didn't hang out with the cool kids, but, I was that friend where like the cool kids would like hang out with me if no one else knew about it, So I was well known, right? So I didn't have any, I was not as studious as I should have been, but part of it is that, I was lucky that I didn't have to work as hard to do well in school.
And was going to ASU like a goal of yours, or was it did your parents want you to go to university, or what?
My parents wanted me to go to ASU. So it was important to them that I went to college. I was close by. And, fortunately, because I grew up in the Phoenix market, if you're a top 5% of your class, you get a full ride to any state university. So ASU, U of A, or NAU. So because I was in the top 5%, and I'm like right at the cusp, whatever that number was, I was actually the one right after it, but they let me in. And so going to ASU was good for my parents so that they didn't have to pay for my education. And then B, I was also close to campus. So I actually still stayed home while a lot of people went to dorms and had the college experience. I still lived with my parents and, had dinner every night. Everything was taken care of. I didn't have to worry about anything.
What are we looking at nowadays for a year of school at University of ASU? How much is that?
I think it's $8,000 a year for in-state tuition. Now, their out-of-state tuition was crazy, and I thought I never understood why anybody would send their kid to Arizona State.
It's party school, man.
It's not that I'm not proud, It's just that we're not known for our education. So the fact that someone—that's
why.
But why would a parent spend $30,000-$40,000 a year to send their kid to? I just never understood it.
That's like one of the big topics, right? The big debate as entrepreneurs in business is, should you go to university or should you avoid it and build a business? So what's your opinion on that, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, so each one of my kids, I know my wife's going to want them all to go to university, right? For me, they're going to have the option. If you can come up with a viable business model by the time you graduate high school, right? Which is, I think is pretty tough. But if you can come up with a viable business model, I'll support it. I'll help you to, build it out.
Right.
But if you don't, if you just wanted to, if you just decide that college is not good for you, that's not acceptable. That is not an acceptable answer. Understood. But if you have a business plan and you have ambitions,
so no silver spoon from daddy. No,
absolutely not. No, you got to earn. You got to fight for everything you got, just like I did. Like my parents
don't tell them that. I see her walking in the back.
Oh yeah.
I can appreciate that, man. Definitely. Obviously you're not doing what you went to school for. Which, by the way, for listeners out there, you went to school to get an electrical engineering degree.
Yep.
Is that right?
I went to 4 years for ASU for electrical engineering, and I went to UC San Diego, got my master's degree in a year and a half, and did that thing for 3.5 years.
What does that entail, electrical engineering?
What do you mean?
Like, I'm asking because I genuinely don't know. Like, what is an electrical engineering?
So, like, the kind of stuff I worked on, right? When I left Intel, the stuff I was working on, like right now, everyone's got USB 3.0 in their phones. I think it's 3.1. When I was in engineering, I left it in 2007. When I left it, what was common in everyone's phones was USB 2.0, or on their computers, USB 2.0. And they were saying, 3.0s can be the future. We're in, again, this is 2007, right? They're showing us videos like, here's what we're going to be a part of. In a few years from now, people are going to be using their cell phones for navigation. They're not going to be using printing MapQuest to travel anymore, right? Which came true eventually. But the vision that they had for us when we were at Intel was really like 7-8 years away. I mean, like right now, you're talking about those foldable Samsung Galaxy phones. That's the stuff I was looking at in college in 2002, right? We were saying like, this is what the future holds. It's like the Stark Expo when you watch the Marvel movies, right?
Yeah.
So those are kind of things that we talked about and we worked on. So I was working on USB 3.0. Like I said, right now you should have 3.1 on your computers and on your phone, at least the newer stuff. But that's what we worked on. We had to create the voltage design, the tolerances to make sure that when you plug in to your cell phone, that it was compatible with whatever devices you were plugging into.
And nothing blows up, right?
Well, we weren't worried about things blowing up like the Galaxy Notes. We were really worried more about catastrophic failure and your cell phone melting. So, we don't want to break anybody's devices. Yeah.
Now, Steve, I'm curious. Why did you choose the electrical engineering path?
So this is going to sound ridiculous to most people, but it was the easy path. I was good at math. And if you're good at math, science, it's not easy, but it comes easier. So because it came naturally to me and it paid well and it's a stable job, like there's not a lot of parents that are disappointed when their kids become engineers, So it was just it satisfied my parents' desires. It paid the bills. I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I went to college, it wasn't like I'm excited to be an engineer. when I went to college, like, I don't know what I want to do, but hell, engineering seems to pay well. Let me do that.
Okay. So it wasn't a passion per se.
It wasn't a passion when I started. It became a passion as I got better at it and I went further along into it. But something happens when you're in school and you're learning, and you got these ideas, you got ambitions, right? Here are the things you want to do, and then you go work in the real world, and the first thing that happens, your wings are clipped. So all the things that you worked on, the exciting stuff, the leading edge stuff, you don't get to work on any of that. What you get to do is make subtle changes to somebody else's work. So this other team had created this design, and you need to update it for today's specs. So it used to be we used to use 3-volt batteries. Now cell phones, we got 1.8-volt batteries. Update the design to reflect that, which is not boring or it's not exciting. You don't get to write home about it. You're not going on Facebook and talking, man, I can't believe I got to make these changes and whatever. And the stuff that's cool that I wanted to work on, again, the leading edge stuff. Well, I'm one of tens of thousands of engineers at Intel. Like, why should I be the one that gets to do like the cool stuff, right? So no one gets to do the cool stuff. And if you can't do the interesting stuff, then you're just working in a cube like everyone else in office space.
You gotta start at the bottom, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Even with the master's degree, right?
But the master's degree, that's entry level engineering. In electrical engineering, that's an entry level job.
So you said that you worked at Intel. Was this some sort of like a job placement, or did you apply? Like, what did that look like? Because that's a pretty big company, right? It's a huge company.
Yeah. So when I graduated ASU 2002, this was right after 9/11 and the dot-com bust. Nobody was hiring. If I wanted to get a job, the best job I can get was paying $40,000, $50,000 a year, right? I killed myself for 4 years in engineering. I'm not settling for that. So I went to grad school. It's like, okay, let me go to graduate school. Let's see what happens. And, hopefully the economy turns around. I actually went to a grad school to get a PhD degree. But after a year of that, I was like, this is a waste of time as well. So I got my master's degree. I looked around, and the only place that was hiring was Intel in Sacramento. So I said, screw it. Let me apply for that. And as soon as there's an opening in Intel in Chandler, I'll just make a transfer, because the Intel in Chandler is less than a mile from my parents' house. So I just figured, I'll just work in Intel in Sacramento for a short period of time, and I'll just move back home as soon as I can. And a year and a half later, there's an opening, and I moved back home. Now, Intel in Sacramento actually called it pulling a Steve Trang. I've heard from other friends after I left that most of the engineers there did not enjoy that I had a plan to leave, to go home. So they actually called it pulling a Steve Trang in Sacramento.
Yeah. Hey, that's good that you got the transfer, man. I know some jobs they don't really allow for that stuff, man. So that's cool. But what was it like, right? Like you went to university, you put in the time, you put in the work, you did the homework, you did the assignments, and then you land this gig at Intel, right? It's like working at freaking Google, right? I mean, what was that like? Like, what did you feel like at the time?
I mean, it was cool when I got in. I was really excited. I made $60,000 my first year, which at the time was a lot of money. And I don't know, I felt great to do what was in the plans. It wasn't plans I made for myself. It wasn't plans I dreamed about. I didn't, say I want to be an engineer. I grew up, but I had a plan and I executed it. So in that way, it was pretty cool. Now, Intel has a reputation of running basically a sweatshop, right? Everyone's working crazy hours, 60 hours, 70 hours a week. They're working weekends and all that. I didn't. I worked about 20, 25 hours a week, week in, week out. I roll in at 9:30, take off 11:30, go home, have lunch, take a nap, get back, and then leave by 4 or 5 o'clock. That was my life. My friend, the one I mentioned earlier, said I was basically living the resort life.
I mean, $60,000 a year, 20, 25 hours a week. I mean, it's not a bad gig for, a lot.
He wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong. But I also knew what the future held. And the future held that if you're any good at your job, then you eventually become a manager. And now you're babysitting people. And I left because I knew I never wanted to be that manager that had to have performance reviews, that had to work crazy hours to write up reports or explain this or that, whatever. I just knew that wasn't for me. And that that's the path. There's no getting around it. Like no matter what, you're gonna have to manage people. And I knew 100% I didn't want to manage people. Now I was wrong. Turns out I don't mind managing people, but I definitely would mind managing people on a salary.
So you're in Sacramento. You're working this job. You transfer to Arizona. Now you got the gig, right? You're close to your home. You're working at Intel, and you said that you left, right? You departed from the company.
Right.
What did you do once you departed?
I became a realtor. So we're looking at rental properties, like a lot of other investors, people in our space. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, said, okay, the W-2 rat race is not for me. I'm going to go do my own thing. So we're trying to buy rental properties. So I partnered up with 3 of my best friends who created an entity, which was a disaster. And we met a broker who was having success in real estate. And I said, okay, so by the way, all our loans got denied. Fortunately, the banks declined all our loans. Otherwise, we would have foreclosures on our records. But at the time, we wanted those loans. But I met a realtor, and I was like, well, what do you do exactly? And how much do you make? He's like, I make $100,000 a year, and all I do is just talk to people. Here I am as an engineer making $70,000. I said, really? That's it? I can handle this, talking to people component. If he explained it was prospecting, that might have been a different story. But talk to people, right?
You might not be here today, right? You might still.
I might not be here today.
Intel.
So I was like, so I asked him, what would it take for him to teach me everything he knows? He said, go get your real estate license. I'll teach you everything I know. I get my real estate license in 2.5 weeks. In this time, I got a pay raise and a promotion from 70K to 85K, right? And so I get my real estate license 2.5 weeks. And at this point, I was like, okay, I can go be my own boss, or I can stay here. And I decided to go be my own boss. So I submitted my 2 weeks notice. So they just gave me a promotion and a raise. And I said, thank you so much, but I'm going to do my own thing.
They were probably like, what the hell? We just gave you extra 15K and now you're leaving?
Yeah. And not only that, what was interesting was my old boss said something interesting to me. He said that he was sad to see me go because he saw that for sure I was going to be a future VP at Intel one day. He's like, that was what I saw for you in the future. I said, man, I wish you would have said that to me before. But and he said, he asked me, like, what would it take for me to stay? I was like, $200K a year. And he said, all right, shook my hands, like, wish you the best of luck out there, kid.
Yeah, right. He's like, that ain't happening anytime soon. Man, wow. So you had already gotten your real estate license before you put the 2 weeks in.
Yeah,
basically.
right.
So you had something lined up. Yeah,
well, kind of lined up, right? But I was working my 9 to 5, literally, 9:30 to 5. And then I would leave. Actually, I think I was leaving around 4:30, so I can make it to the real estate school by 5, so I can do my classes, right? So, you had to take 18 classes in a row. So you take 18 5-hour classes, and then that's 90 hours so you can become licensed. So I was working there in a day, and then I was getting my license at night.
Okay. So leaving a job for 85K to become a real estate agent, right? And for the listeners out there that don't know, the majority, if not all, real estate agents work commission only.
Yeah.
Like 100% commission. So you eat what you kill. You got to go 100%. Out and make a deal or you're not getting paid.
Right.
So what was that like, leaving an $85,000 a year guaranteed secure salary to possibly making nothing?
For me, it was no big deal. I know for a lot of people, it's a concern, but you got to look at it. At the time, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I literally had no responsibilities except for my mortgage. Now, I was in a very serious relationship who, ended up becoming my wife and mother of my 3 beautiful daughters. But at the time, like, there was 2 things that were going through my head. If I fail, I can always go back to my job, right? So I didn't really have the fear in me of what would happen if this goes wrong. And then, I mentioned my parents a couple of times. Like, worst case, I just moved back in with my parents again.
Hey, I like it, man. I think that's what just entrepreneurship in general requires, right? You got to take risks, right? Either you're gonna win or you're gonna lose, but you gotta at least go for it, right? Mark Cuban says you only need to be right once, and that's it.
Yeah, that's what he did with his internet radio. And I had my friends, when we used to go clubbing in Vegas, They always thought it was ridiculous, but we would go to the clubs, and I'm not the best looking guy. I understand that now. I didn't know that back then. Back then,
you're looking pretty sexy to me, Steve.
But it didn't matter how hot the girl was. I would still walk up to her, say hi, introduce myself, ask her for her number, ask her to dance, whatever. And my friends are always like, why do you have zero problems talking to the most attractive girl? And my answer always was, what's the worst that can happen? They say no. And that's sales as well. I've never got my feelings hurt that someone said no or hung up on me. It's just the cost of doing business.
I like it. And we're talking about clubs in Vegas, man. Which clubs we talking about?
Oh man, was it
talking about Hakkasan?
No,
Omnia?
Not Hakkasan. There was something at the. Oh, what the heck was it? It's been so long. There was that. It was an Asian sounding name.
Tao.
There you go.
Tao.
Yeah.
Tao's still in business, man. Is
it?
Hell yeah. I love Vegas, man. I used to be a club rat back in the day, man. Catch me at all the EDM parties, the raves, and all that good stuff. Vegas actually just reopened, man. Like last night.
Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. Casinos are back open now.
Yep.
So hopefully get the economy boosting again in Vegas.
Hopefully.
But I'm curious. You got the license, right? You got this guy. He's like, I'm gonna teach you everything, right? What'd you do next?
I crashed and burned. So I started in May of 2007. In hindsight, not the best time to get in real estate. So 2008. So you got shiny object syndrome. You're signing up for everything. So 2008, my 1040 was negative 50,000, meaning my expenses were actually 50,000 more than my revenue. So like it's still, every once in a while I think back, when my accountant who's doing your taxes says like, man, I'm sorry. Right? Like that's not what you want to hear from your accountant.
This is true.
Right? So it was a rough time. 2009, I was facing foreclosure. My wife and I, it was tough. She's the one for me. Everyone, if you're out there listening, you got to get a strong woman. But even as strong as she is, like it was tough. She actually got a second job so I can, continue to chase my dreams.
That's powerful.
But I can't say we had the best conversations, Now,
so when you say you were negative 50, what were the expenses? Like just living expenses, or like what was going on there?
So being a realtor, you're trying to get leads. And so, I signed up for realtor.com, which was a complete joke. And I was paying like $1,800 a month to be like the banner, on the top.
Yeah.
Back when banner ads used to be more prevalent, they're still around, but they're not big anymore like they were back in the day.
Yeah.
So I was paying $1,800 a month to be a banner ad, which was complete waste. I was paying, I think, $2,000 a month to be in CoStar because I was like, well, let me hedge my bets. Like I'm at the craps table, put some money over here, put some money in the commercial real estate thing. And, shiny object syndrome is legit. Like you're putting your money everywhere because you don't know which one's going to pop.
Right.
And unfortunately, none of them popped. I'll take that back. Realty Track worked. That was the only one that worked for me.
Wow, man. So you're spending all this money to get your name out there, and the leads just weren't equaling the amount of money you were spending.
Not even close, because even when I got a hold of them, they didn't want to buy. Who wants to buy in a down market? So it was tough.
I mean, even to this day in 2020, right? That's still a very relevant topic. New investors and wholesalers that are running market campaigns sometimes just throwing paint at the wall. Nothing's coming back.
Well, it's a real problem, especially because we have a lot of people in the industry, talking about what people should be doing, recommending tools and so on. They may not even be using, and that's just kind of, unfortunately, this is the world we're in. And it's easy to say these wholesaling gurus are taking advantage of people and so on. But here's the fact of the matter. I've been a realtor as well. It happens in every industry. I've also been in the information marketing world. It's in every industry. So you want to blast the wholesaling gurus, you have to understand this is the information marketing business, and that's what they all do.
And it's a very lucrative business to be in.
A very lucrative business to be in, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I both know, Steve, that if somebody really wants to find out information, right, Google doesn't let you down.
You'll find it. You got the Facebook groups.
Yeah, you'll find it.
And you got the podcast. I'm pretty responsive on social media. I answer people's questions as much as I can because it wasn't that long ago that I was one of the people that were trying to get a grasp on the world, trying to understand. And I would reach out to the gurus at the time who would ignore my messages. I was on Instagram. We weren't DMing. We were sending private messages on Facebook, but they weren't responding, and that's just the way it was. I think people are more responsive today, which I think is pretty cool. But it's one of the reasons why I am more responsive.
There's a huge difference, in my opinion, between training and coaching, right? Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about like digital products and stuff like that, yeah, there's a lot of great products in the market. There's also a lot of shitty products in the market. But when you like hire a rock solid coach that has a proven track record of success and results, like I'm all for that. Like, I truly believe in coaching. What's your opinion on that?
100%. One of the things that is important to me is that we're actually active still in the wholesaling business. And the reason why is I just don't think you should be able to coach someone if you haven't done it. And I'm not saying let me take about if you haven't done it recently. So if you had success doing direct mail and bandit signs, great. But you can't teach that. Or you can teach it, but now you're taking a lot of money and providing no value. So I think you've got to be active in the business, really finding out what works. And that's the benefit that we have is that I'm just naturally curious. I'm always trying to find the best stuff, trying to find a slight edge. And whatever works, we just share it with people in our program.
You got to fact check, right? You have to. Yeah. You got people nowadays, Steve. This is the world we live in, man. They start an e-com business, okay? They drop ship for a week, and then they make a course. And then they sell you the course, and they take some fake screenshots from their $1 million in product sales. Like, get the heck out of here. That stuff is toxic to me, and it makes the real ones look bad.
It's toxic, but again, I come from the real estate realtor industry, and actually some of the top guys in the realtor industry did the same exact thing.
Yeah.
They had a success for a month. People are like, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, you're right. Prospecting sucks. I'm just going to sell coaching.
Yeah.
So there are guys that haven't sold a house in 40 years or have never sold a house on the realtor side that are big names in the coaching industry. So I guess for me, I'm kind of jaded, so I'm not disappointed in the wholesaling side.
Well, I think also that plays into the fact that to be a great coach, you don't necessarily have to be a player in the game. And for example, right, Tim Grover, Michael Jordan's trainer, he's not an NBA ball player, but he was able to coach, Michael Jordan through his success and multiple championships.
You can coach them through mindset, for sure, but I think for me, when I talk to people about hiring a coach, I say, because we all come in different flavors and styles and so on. My recommendation to people is find a person that you resonate with, someone who lives a lifestyle that you want. Like if you want to have nice cars and a nice watch, don't follow me. Like I'm not that guy. Do I have a nice car? I like to think so, but it's not the nicest.
What are you driving, Steve?
I drive a Performance Model 3.
Tesla.
That's
a nice car, bro.
It's a nice car, yeah.
Is that modest to you or what?
It's not Lambo, sexy.
But I don't know, man, because nowadays you see a lot of celebs even driving Tesla. I mean, Teslas are awesome. I think so.
Yeah, I'm a Tesla fanboy, right? I love Elon, but it's just for most people, from what I've seen, no one brags about a Tesla.
Yeah,
you brag about the cars that are worth 200 plus.
Yeah,
right. Hand stitched, manual, actual manual.
I get
manual
it.
labor.
It has to be your cup of tea, though, right? Like, not everybody.
Well, and it's not to say that I wouldn't love, a super nice, extravagant car, but for me, this car does everything I need it to do. At the end of the day, that's what I'm looking for, right? I want to be able to take a corner going 55. That's all I need.
Dude,
so,
if we're really gonna get technical, man, cars are depreciating assets, man. Liabilities, right? These things are, you drive them off the lot, they're losing value right away. Like,
you got to buy it for you. It's got to be only for you. It can't be for investment purposes. But going back to my point, when you're trying to hire a coach, I think you got to fact check, like you said. We have P&Ls. We can provide P&Ls. And we're doing it, and we're telling you what works, and we're telling you what doesn't work.
That's powerful, man. Showing the P&L is definitely, that's powerful. And for the listeners out there, that's the profit and loss statement, right?
Yep.
So Steve, you started losing money, right? You're sinking like the damn Titanic. It's 2007. You're probably like, oh shit, I should have stayed at Intel, right? This sucks. What was next?
There was a lot of doubt.
What was next, man? How'd you come out of this? How did you make it through?
Well, with distressed properties kind of being the thing, I started doing short sales, branded myself as a short sale expert, which worked. I got some deals out of that. And then I tried to get in the foreclosure market, being a real estate, an REO business, an agent for the banks. And I was able to work my way into that through sheer fortune. It was pure luck. I didn't deserve it. I got into it. I can tell you the lessons I learned. You don't go through the front door. You got to buy them drinks just like you're in the club. So I was taking asset managers from the banks. We're going clubbing, buying them bottle service, right? Like that's what we did to get business. And every time I did that, I would come back and I would get new listings, right? So that's what we did to kind of get through. You got to be, you got to have a little bit of ingenuity to work your way through a problem. But what really changed my life is ironically, we get back to this, was coaching. So I knew that the foreclosure business was withering and something was going to change. And so I signed up for Craig Proctor coaching, and really that changed my life, because that's when I went from a technician working within my business to understanding what it means to be a business owner. And I've read the E-Myth. I've read the business books talking about running a business that pays for you versus you being in the business. I get all of that, but I didn't really understand it until I got into Craig Proctor coaching.
And what did that teach you? What was that shift like, if you wouldn't mind sharing?
It was understanding how to hire employees properly, having policies and procedures manual, having onboarding, having processes from when someone calls your real estate sign, what happens throughout the process for the life of the lead. And I'm not saying I was perfect, but it was 100 times better than what I had. Right. And so that was kind of the thing that opened my eyes that, I actually can have a business that doesn't depend on me.
And is that when you went from agent to broker? Exactly.
So I went from, I was an agent, but after I got into coaching, I loved my old broker. I wish him nothing but the best. I know he hates me. It is what it is. But after I didn't get any more value from him, I started my own brokerage because I was then testing with my own money on what works and what doesn't work. And anytime something worked, it would benefit the brokerage. But anytime it didn't work, well, I took all the risk. And so I kind of got tired of it. So I started my own brokerage. Like, if I'm going to try it and test it, then I have to benefit when it works. And, it's on me when it fails, and that's fine. But I need to get the benefit of it working, not someone else.
Now, I don't know what the requirements are from state to state, but I know in Texas, and I could even be wrong about this, but I believe it's like 4,000 hours to start your own brokerage, to get your brokerage license. Does that sound right to you? Or
in Arizona, you need to be in the business for 3 years. You actually don't even have to do a transaction. You just need to be licensed for 3 years.
Okay. And do you have to take another exam to get the license for the broker?
Yes, you take another exam, but it's not any more difficult than the real estate agent exam.
Okay.
It's really, the bar is really low, unfortunately.
What do you mean by that, unfortunately?
There's a lot of brokers in our industry. There's a lot of brokers here that are idiots. We've got over 40,000 agents, and you deal with brokers who, they flex on you. Like, well, I'm a broker and this and that. And it's like, listen, buddy, I understand you're a broker, but I've done 1,000 more transactions than you. Like, get off your high horse.
So you feel like they need to raise the requirements to get in. So there's
100%. You have to do like a 2,000 hour or something crazy apprenticeship to cut hair or clip nails in Phoenix to become a beauty technician.
Yeah.
You need 90 hours in the real estate school to become a licensed agent.
Yeah. Maybe you start lobbying to raise the bar.
Nah, that's all right. I'm not fighting that fight anymore. I've been involved in those fights. No one likes what I have to say, so I've stopped saying it.
That means you got to say it even more. So what was the brokerage called? Or what is it? Is this brokerage still around today?
It's still around today. I don't want to necessarily bring them up, but our brokerage is
your brokerage. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Stunning Home Realty.
Stunning Home Realty. So same name for the last over 10
since 2013.
Years. 2013.
Yep.
Okay, so same name. And when you started this brokerage, right? Like, you have did you get like an office? What were you working? Okay.
Yeah, I had to get an office, had to get space, personally guarantee that space. So if anything fails, I'm on the hook,
Right.
for the lease for the entire duration of it. Um, and yeah, we got the office. We started with the intent to stay small. We never wanted to get big. That was never the intent. But as we grew, we got more eyes on us. And as my influence grew, more and more people wanted to come over and join our brokerage. In fact, the reason why the old broker hates me is because agents from the other brokerage came over to my brokerage. And to me, it was like, I'm not recruiting them. Like, they're asking to come over. Like, these are grown men
Right.
asking them to come over. What am I supposed to do here? So, unfortunately, that ended very, very poorly. But, again, we didn't want to get big. Now we're 120 agents.
So agents start coming in, and they're like, "Hey, we want to put our license here, and we want to do some deals under your brand."
Yeah, they like what we stand for, and they like that we're very business minded. We're entrepreneurs here. We're all business owners here. We're not, and really, even though I've got the brokerage, it's pretty cool. I bought stunninghomes.com at some point, to support the brand and all that amazing stuff. But at the end of the day, every person is their own business, their own brand, and I push them to be their own brand. So even though, by law, they have to have our brokerage name on there, so we do the minimum as far as compliance goes. But we push them. You go do your thing, and let us be here to support you do your thing. But you go do your thing, and that's always been the focus. And I think they like the I won't say hands off, but just not so much hands on. And then we're here to help them whenever they need it.
So they have freedom.
Yeah.
I like that. Now, for the listeners out there that aren't familiar with how this setup works, so the brokerage is the house. The agents that are working with you or for you go out and they do all these transactions on their own. They prospect, yada yada, and then the house takes a cut. Is that right?
Exactly. It takes a small piece.
Right. So in 2020, is opening a brokerage still lucrative?
No.
Okay. Share.
Anytime anyone wants to open a brokerage, I tell them not to. And people told me not to open a brokerage. And in some ways, I wish I listened, because it took 7 years to become profitable. Right? Like 2019 was the first profitable year. So from 2013 to 2018, every year that we were in business was me putting money into the business.
No shit. Why is that? Why is there so much overhead?
Well, here's this funny thing that happens with realtors. I don't see this as much as wholesalers, but it happens in the wholesaler community as well. Is that, let's say Ross, right? You're the broker, I'm the realtor. It's like, hey Ross, I love what you do. I love your brand. Can you teach me what you know? And you say, of course I'll teach you, right? Okay. So we start. We're a 70-30 split. And it's great. You're happy. I'm happy. I get value. I do business and you make money. And then I start getting success. Hey, Ross, I know we started 70-30. We got to be 80-20 now. You're like, okay, no big deal. Right? I have more success. Hey, Ross, we got to be at 90-10. You're like, okay, I guess. Right? Or I'm leaving to the other shop that's 100%. That's 200 a file. I mean, there are places that are $50 a file right now in Phoenix, And then this happens some more. I was like, hey, Ross, I know we agreed to 90-10, but at this point, if you can't do 250 file, I understand. I got to go somewhere else. So all that time you put into somebody, you get a little bit of the benefit, and then they're gone.
And by file, you mean transaction, right? Like contract.
Yep. And that's just the broker-realtor relationship. I'm not mad about it. Like, you don't hate the player, hate the game, right? That's just the reality of the business. But it sucked emotionally the first few times that happened.
No, I understand. I mean, and plus there's a lot of cloud competition nowadays I see with brokerages like EXP. I don't know your thoughts on that, but to my knowledge, you can just hang your license virtually nowadays.
Yeah, I think it's silly, but that's a whole other conversation.
So you had a profitable year, right? But in 2019, but we're talking 2013. I'm sure you were doing other things to make money during that time frame. Yeah.
So what was paying the bills was I had my traditional real estate team. We're coming up on 100 deals a year. I think 2014, 15, 16, I was doing 100 deals a year on my traditional team. And then I was flipping on the side, wholesaling on the side. I didn't know it was wholesaling, but we were buying houses and then listing them without doing very much to them. So we were wholesaling before that became a common household term.
Yeah. Being in the investor space, and for the listeners out there who are thinking about getting in the investment space, you will find a disconnect between the average real estate agent and the wholesaling flipping market. What's your opinion on that, right? Because you're obviously like the both, right? You're investor friendly. You understand both sides, but I mean, generally speaking, for the new investor out there that's wholesaling, they're gonna get shit from the traditional agents and think you're doing something illegal. Like, what's your opinion on all that?
So that's one of the reasons why I started the podcast, was because I thought that you got the realtor community who looks down on the wholesaling community, and you got the wholesaling community that looks down on the realtor community. And I do both. So in my mind, it's like, let's start a podcast and let's marry it. If you look at the first 3 months of my podcast, we alternated wholesaler, realtor, wholesaler, realtor, wholesaler, realtor. But no one cares about the realtor story, so we just went wholesale all the way. But along the way, I realized that you can't combine them, and that this animosity is going to just be around forever. And it's not my war to fight. It's not my battle. But realtors look at wholesalers as vultures that take advantage of the elderly, right? And if you look at it on outside looking in, if all you see is, your old granny, a house, and you look at the settlement statement and you look at someone that flipped it, you can make the argument that granny was taken advantage of. But that's just a part of the story. If you look at the whole story, well, granny was moving into this retirement home and she needed to have it done in 6 days or less. And she's got a hoarder situation and she's got cat situations, and no one was getting a mortgage on that house. Just nobody, right? Like, that just wasn't ever going to happen. So we on the wholesale side or the flip side understand why granny had to sell at such a steep discount. But the realtor would rather feel high and mighty and stick their nose up at you and feel good about themselves than really understanding the needs of the homeowner. But wholesalers are just as bad. I mean, I see it in the wholesaling houses full time. Or the other day, talking about how realtors are lazy and they only care about the commission, they don't care about the homeowner. No, they care about getting the most for the house because that's what realtors are trained to do. In their mind, there's only one solution, right? If all you have is a hammer and your tool belt, everything looks like a nail. Well, that's what they got. That's their only tool. They're always going to go in there and looking at that like an equity play, right? Or an equity situation. So for me, I look at it, hey, Ross, what's going on in your situation? Do you need more money or do you have a time problem? And depending on your situation, we will come up with an answer that best fits Ross. And I think that's what the piece I was trying to fit on the podcast, but it clearly was a massive failure.
As an investor myself, man, I don't care who's bringing me the deal. If it's a deal, it's a deal.
Exactly.
So, contrary to what like the narrative is in the real estate space, some of the most profitable deals I've ever done were REOs. And, I work with investor agents all the time. And if it's a deal, it's a deal, man. Like,
it's all that matters.
Yeah.
The numbers make sense.
That's it. That's it, man. So, Steve, I'm curious. With all of the success and the results that you have now, knowing what you know now, looking way back, is there anything that you would have done differently that sticks out to you?
There's two things I would have done differently. In 2007, I learned about wholesaling, and I thought it was a fad. Clearly, I was mistaken. It took me 13 years to figure that out.
Sounds like Bitcoin.
11 years, yeah, exactly. It took me 11 years to figure that out. So I wish I started wholesaling immediately instead of going down the traditional road. And I wish I started a podcast earlier, because I started a podcast in 2018 and it's changed my life. What would have happened if I started in 2015 or 2010 or, 2008 or 9? Who knows where my life would be? So those are the two things.
What do you mean? What do you mean that the podcast changed your life?
Well, I'm still the same guy that I was 2 years ago, but I get a lot more credibility and accolades now. I'm on a first name basis with the top investors throughout the country. I'm on a first name basis with the top investors throughout the country and some of the top realtors throughout the country. Right. So I've got an amazing Rolodex.
Yeah.
That does not exist without my podcast.
You're like the Joe Rogan of the real estate podcast.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
I
Trying
love
to.
it,
I'm waiting
man.
for Spotify to give me a call.
And for they might be calling soon. Dude. I think Joe Rogan just set like a new
Yeah, eight
achievement.
figures.
Yeah,
And
unlock
if
something.
Spotify is listening, I will settle for 7 figures.
Spotify, I'll do it for 6. For the listeners out there that aren't familiar with your podcast,
Yeah.
can you share some information with us on that?
Yeah, sure. So it's Real Estate Disruptors. We've been around since May of 2018. And half of our podcast is just like yours. We go through the journey because I think it's really important to understand that everyone that has success, predominantly, only one person had an easy upbringing. Everyone else had a tough life. And so we really talk about the journey. And the reason why it's so important, I imagine the same as yours, is I want people to know that you can have success no matter where you started, right? So the first part of the podcast is really about the journey. And the second half is more tactical. What are you doing? If you're a flipper, let's talk about how you do more flips. If you're a wholesaler, let's talk about what's your advantage. Is it your lead source, your cold calling, specific, tools or tips, whatever it is that they've achieved success on, they all have some sort of superpower, and we really hone in to understand what that advantage is so that people that are listening can take advantage of it if they're able to execute.
And that's on all platforms, or where can people tune it?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, anywhere basically you can listen to a podcast, I believe. Well, I mean, we're not on iHeartRadio. I haven't figured out that one yet.
Yeah, I think the big three are the YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Those are like the most convenient.
I think we covered 99% of it.
Yeah, there you go, man. Great show, by the way. Hats off to you, brother.
Thank you very much.
Love tuning in. Steve, what would you say on a personal level, as Steve the entrepreneur, would be your biggest challenge or flaw that you struggle with?
Me? Well, I know I'm not naturally charismatic, but I'm not sure I would change it either. So the female term is RBF, and I've had people tell me I've got the male version of that.
What? Tell the listeners what the RBF is.
Resting bitch face.
There you go.
Right? So when I've had vendors or people that are trying to win my business, and they come in, like if you come in, Ross steps into my office, my conference room, and you try to sell me a service, I'm going to listen intently. I'm 100% present, but you better freaking bring it. And if you have any holes in your presentation, I'm going to poke holes in it. Right. And so a lot of people were intimidated by me in that it seemed like I was too serious, but I'm about to give you my money. Why would I not be serious? So I have heard, like I said, I've got a male version of RBF. I got a buddy who's my title rep, going to become my title rep again. He left, he's back now. And I've never had a title rep that I was actually impressed with. And he was the only one I was ever impressed with. And then he left that appointment thinking he lost it, like he wasn't going to get it. So when I followed back up and was like, hey, I'm ready to go, he's like, really? But because I'm serious, if I'm going to give you my business, if I'm going to trust you with my clients, and I'm going to trust you with my money, I'm going to do my due diligence and investigate. So I know, like I said, a lot of people find me to be intimidating when they first meet me. I don't think that's terrible, but I know that's, considered a flaw. And then I'm not, the life of the party. I'm not naturally charismatic. So if you look at the DISC profile, I'm a -9, right? From -9 to 9, I'm a -9. I don't, become best friends with someone right off the bat. But again, I don't know if I would change anything.
You are who you are, brother.
Yeah.
But being self-aware is important, right? Like Gary.
Oh, it's super critical. You have to be self-aware, 100%.
At least you know that about yourself, right?
Yeah.
We all have things.
Right. I had someone tell me they're asking me to give more attaboys and good jobs or whatever, and I said, and I took a different profile test. This is a Keller Williams test, and it actually said as far as all my management traits, I have one that's worse than any other, and is that I don't ever say good job.
Why is that?
I don't know. It's probably my Asian upbringing. You know, if you like, either you got 100% or you failed. Like that's what we were raised with.
Really?
And
Is that how it
in
is
the
in the
oh yeah, and so in
growing
the
up?
work life,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Like, hey, you did your job, great.
No
It's not.
praise. No,
It's not
no,
like, hey
no pat
Ross,
on the
man,
back.
hey Ross, good job on getting your report turned in on time.
Yeah.
No, hey Ross, thank you for the report.
Yeah.
That's
So,
it.
do you feel like the people that work for you are like, did I do a good job or am I on the chopping block? Like, where?
They know where they stand because if I'm unhappy, I don't scream. I don't tear into them. I'll say, hey Ross, thank you for this. Next time, can you just make sure you've got this? You know, make sure it has this or whatever. I've never screamed. I've had people that cost me money. You know, lost $3,000 because they did the wrong thing on it. I don't get mad. It's my fault for not communicating my expectations properly. So I say, hey Ross, you did this. It cost the company $3,000. In the future, let's make sure we don't do that again. And if you do it again, I'm firing your butt, right? But the first time, I never get, you know, I never scream. I never go on a tirade. So everyone that's with me knows they're doing a great job. And I'll say it every once in a while, right? When it's worthwhile, when it means something. And here's the thing. I never say it. So when I say it, you know I mean it.
Boom. There you go, man. There you go. Steve, going forward in the future, right? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Like, what's your plan to keep building, to keep elevating and impacting?
You know, it's funny. I've shared this with a couple of people and they think it's funny. But I want to be like an Asian Tony Robbins. You know, I want to change, you know, change people's lives. You know, right now we're going through some horrible, horrible times. And everyone overall is pretty negative at this exact moment, or maybe not as negative today as they were a couple of days ago. You know, between George Floyd, the coronavirus, Kobe, and you know, I'm waiting for the zombie apocalypse, by the way. But all these bad things are happening.
Yeah.
You know, so everyone's kind of down. But to put it in perspective, and this might sound horrible, but would you rather be? Is there another time ever that you'd rather be alive than today? And is there another country you'd rather be in than here? You know, so I think that we need to change the perspective, people's mindsets on you know, put it in a proper perspective, and then also give them the tools, the know-how to actually make a difference in their lives. I think that's one of the things that is missing, because it's really easy to focus on the negatives. Negative sells eyeballs, sells advertising. Unfortunately, there's one industry that does better than any other, and it's the news, based off fear, right? And so for me, my goal is to, you know, I say on the show, create 100 millionaires, but really I want to do more than that. I already know 100 millionaires. It's not done yet, but I've pretty much checked it off because it's going to happen. So then the question is, can I help create 1,000 millionaires? How many people's lives can I change?
Absolutely.
That's what I look at.
It's powerful, man. You're going to do it. And it's true what you say, man, that I'm so fed up with the media. First of all, I mean, 2020, in my opinion, is just dog shit, and I'm just so sick of it.
It is.
It's just one thing after another. But the media and their narratives, it's not even statistical, factual reporting anymore. It's all biased nonsense, and there's an
agenda.
It's an agenda, and they want you to feel how they want you to feel. I need to learn how to disconnect from the news for a couple of days, because I can't even open up Facebook, man, without seeing. It's like, what's gonna happen tomorrow, man? A fucking volcano's gonna erupt. I mean, you got hurricanes. COVID.
Well, we're gonna have patient zero sometime before the end of the year. Sometime before the election, we're gonna have patient zero. It's gonna be World War Z.
I know you strapped up, bro. I know, out there in Arizona.
We're ready.
I know, man.
Do not try to break into a person's house in Arizona. Just don't do it.
Don't do it, man. Hey, you know what's really cool about Arizona is y'all's driver's license is like never expire. A lot of people don't know that, but that's like New Jersey, you don't have to pump your own gas. There's always a gas attendant. Like, you're not even allowed to pump your own gas. In Arizona, you never have to renew your driver's license. That's super badass. Yeah. Why is Arizona the only state that does that, by the way? Do you know?
I don't know. I mean, we're one of the last states, right? I think Hawaii and Alaska are the only two that came in after us. So I think we're just...
I didn't know. I just learned something new.
Yeah, I think we're just the problem child state, which I fully embrace. I love it. We're the wild, wild west.
I got to get out there, man. Beautiful state, man. Beautiful state. Steve, I got one last question for you. I ask every guest on the question the same show. I'd like to extend that to you if that's okay. In your entire life, what has been the absolute best advice that you've ever received?
So this takes me back to when I was like 4. And this is going to sound ridiculous because we've all heard the same thing. Most of us have heard the same thing. So I'm in the car. My mom is driving me to my aunt's house. You know, her sisters, they're very close. And I'm singing along the radio. I'm singing loudly. And I'm a terrible singer. I actually took voice lessons at ASU, and I sucked at that too. So I'm singing, and I apologize to my mom. I was like, yo, Mom, I'm sorry that you have to listen to this. And she said to me, Steve, you can do anything that you want as long as as long as you're willing to put in the work, right? This is what, my mom's saying to me as a 4-year-old kid. And my whole life, everyone's felt like I have an irrational sense of confidence. And I tie it back to that moment. So Dan Sullivan, who runs Strategic Coach, says there's nothing more to an entrepreneur than their confidence. You got to protect their confidence. And so the best piece of advice that was given to me, and it's silly because all moms say it to their kids, but I don't know why that one always stuck with me.
That's powerful, man. Protect your confidence.
Yeah.
You can do anything you want, man, as long as you're willing to put in the work for it. I love it, brother. Well, Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure.
I am a terrible singer.
We won't put the listeners through that pain, man.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But Steve, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, man. Great story, super inspiring, and a ton of gold nuggets, lots of value. It's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for stopping by, and look forward to staying connected.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I hope the listeners got value out of it.
You know they did, brother. Oh, by the way, for the listeners that do want to hit you up, man, because they want to give you some feedback, check out your show, what's the best place, man? Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah, Instagram at steve.trang, steve.trang.
Awesome, man. Awesome. We'll link that in the show notes. Steve, enjoy the day, brother.